Tomorrow, October 9th, would have been Joachim's 96th birthday. So our sincere prayers and sympathy go to his sister Martha, nieces Fran and Julie, and truly all the family on the death of a brother and uncle, such a beautiful close friend. On Joachim's 75th birthday, October 9th, 1970, his Carmelite brothers and friends gave him a tribute, a festschrift, a book of 26 essays. The title of the book was The Land of Carmel. And that phrase came from the Carmelite liturgy, Induxi vos in terram Carmeli, I have led you into the land of Carmel. Joachim lived and worked in that land of Carmel for over 80 years. As I reflected on his life, I thought of three periods, three stages. First, his foundation years. Secondly, his determination years. And thirdly, his inspiration years. The foundation years began in 1930. He entered the Carmelite Minor Seminary at Niagara Falls, Canada, Mount Carmel. Right from the very beginning, he had an incredible interest in everything Carmelite, especially, as he said often to Killian Lynch and Killian Healy, he wanted to tell the story of our family of Carmel. He soon began to publish. Our journal, The Sword, began in January 1937. Joachim published his first translation, Ave Stella Matutina, Hail Morning Star. And while still a frater, not professed solemnly, he was appointed in 1937 the editor of the poetry section of the journal. That was the beginning of his writings. And before he was ordained in May of 1942, he had already published over 100 articles, book reviews, poems, reflections on Carmelite history. By the time he got to Rome, 1948, he had 180 publications. An incredible output of work. His going to Rome is a very interesting chapter in Joachim's life. He is one of the only Carmelites that I know who was mentioned in a general decree of a chapter. In 1947, after 10 years, because of World War II, Carmelites celebrated a general chapter at St. Albert's in Rome. Surprisingly, the fathers at the chapter wanted to see a new interest in everything Carmelite, especially its history. So I quote decree number 10 of that chapter. With unanimous agreement, we affirm the necessity and the desire to have a manual of the history of the order. With this in mind, it is agreed that Father Joachim Smet, a member of the American province of the Most Pure of Heart of Mary, complete the work that he has already begun. In Rome, he arrived in April of 1948 after the prior general, Killian Lynch, had written to his provincial, Matthew O'Neill, that he wanted Joachim as soon as possible. He continued his foundation by beginning a doctorate in church history at the Jesuit Gregorian University that he completed in 1951. Those 3 years was his introduction to the Vatican Library, Museum, and the archives of the order in Rome. His foundation years. And his closest Carmelite friends were probably his classmates, Roland Murphy, Joel Skeevers, and his two companions studying in Rome, Eamon Carroll, Ernest Larkin. Second period, his determination years. From the moment he became a member of the Carmelite Institute, 1953, until he finally published his 4th volume of his monumental The Carmelites, The History of the Brothers Our Lady of Mount Carmel, 1985. Father Killian Healy, in writing an appreciation of Joachim in that festschrift, The Land of Carmel, summed up Joachim's qualities. Killian wrote, to him the most important was his determination, his commitment, his dedication over so long a period to tell the story of the family of Carmel. Let me put that determination in perspective. I was writing an introduction to that book, so I did a little research on Joachim. I found a letter that he wrote to Father Saberta in Rome in 1947. He began by thanking Father Saberta for his help on some of the historical points. And I quote his words, I expect to finish the 18th and 19th centuries soon, and so complete the first draft of my manuscript. Thereafter, I shall go back and fill in the details. 1947, completed in 1985. Not even Joachim realized how long it would take to fill in those details. First volume of his monumental work was published in 1975. He continued his research, the Vatican Library, the archives of the order, constantly rewriting till he completed his work in 1985. In 800 years history, the most important historical work that we have. During those Roman days, I mentioned some of his collaborators. Father Ludovico Saggi, Father Peter O'Dwyer, Pablo Garrido, and here in the United States, Keith Egan, Paul Chandler in Australia. Third period, the inspiration years. Joachim was the guide and the mentor of so many young Carmelites in their studies. Well before 1985, but especially in the last 25 years of his life. Students constantly went to Joachim for advice and for direction. And his book, The Carmelites, was a constant source of direction and of information about what it meant to be a Carmelite. That book has been translated into 8 languages: German and Dutch, Italian and Spanish almost completely, and then partially into Portuguese, Indonesian, French, and even into, many of us would say, a language we hardly know at all. And that would be Tagalog in the Philippines. Joachim not only influenced and inspired many young Carmelites, but he was part of the original Carmelite Institute in Rome. 1953, he was appointed the editor of the Carmelites, the journal, and in charge of the historical section of the Institute. And that institute has given rise to many others throughout the world. Nijmegen in Holland, Dublin, Sao Paulo in Brazil, Malang in Indonesia, Manila, and especially here in our own province. I remember well April 14th, in 1993, 2 of our provincials, Quinn Connors, Gary O'Brien, and 3 Discalce provincials founded and inaugurated the North American Carmelite Institute. Joachim was there for the occasion, but I remember so well at Whitefriars Hall, Joachim standing in the background. In one sense, completely unnoticed. But those of us who knew him well knew that was Joachim. He had no need of the limelight, but he was truly the inspiration of everything that was happening. I asked him at that time what he was doing, and of course, he was in the library, making the library at Whitefriars, with the help of Patricia, the second most important Carmelite library in the world. Always in the background, but truly an inspiration to so many of our younger Carmelites. And I mention in particular his friends at Whitefriars, Don Buggart, Jack Welch, Quinn Connors, those historians who followed in his footsteps, Patrick McMahon, Leopold Gluckert. Truly an inspiration, because whenever someone had a question, Joachim's door was always open. His work could always be put aside to listen, to encourage whatever some young scholar was trying to do. That happened at Washington, constantly happened in Rome. So this morning we're so happy to have our General Counselor from Rome, Raoul Moravi, and his prior at St. Albert's, Mihal O'Neill, with us to represent St. Albert's, a place where Joachim probably lived well over 60 years of his life. So the foundation years, the determination years, the inspiration years. But underneath all of these, Joachim was a brother to all of us. A quiet, gentle spirit, great sense of humor, always ready to lift a glass of cheer. I won't mention his favorite drink, but present with us. Truly a brother in Carmel, who told us of our history with its hills and its valleys, its growth and its declines, its joys and its sorrows, always telling us the truth about our history. Last Tuesday, Joachim died on October 4th. I strongly feel he had a wonderful, warm welcome into the heavenly land of Carmel. From our Blessed Mother, and from so many of our deceased brothers and sisters. Joachim personally knew most of them by name. So may Joachim rest in peace. Requiescat in pace. Amen.